right, I have returned. Okay, so we're gonna work on some, well, eventually uploading to YouTube. Let's think about what do we actually need to do this. And the order that things need to happen in. So the diagram tells me some of what I need to make, and I had a vague sense already of how I was thinking, unless I'm going to make a significant departure or I'm going to find some other service or way of doing this, it's probably going to end up looking this way. So it's not like this came from nothing. Since I did sketch out kind of some things to do, right? So I was thinking a batch job, and then we need some way of handling the rate limit and quotas and uploading one thing at a time. I guess a question is, like, if we have this coordinating, let's say it's a step function, right? When does it run? So one of the neat things about step functions, right? So let's do this. Let's go over to console. We can maybe sketch things out a little bit. I'll just do a blank template. So one of the nice things about one of these state machines is they can run for a long period of time. In other words, we're talking like, I think it's a year. So theoretically, you can have something here where it goes to look for, like, you could have something that's essentially running infinitely and it's in a loop, and it would go through and it would scan DynamoDB and it would look for videos and it would do its thing, and then it would wait until there are more. Well, how would it wait? Well, it would have to just have some kind of delay and then look again. So the downside of that, like any kind of thing where you poll, right? We're talking about polling, is that you would need to weigh or balance between polling less frequently means you are less responsive. There's a greater delay between when you start doing things, when stuff happens, but you are invoking APIs or calling services or doing things less. So maybe that's less expensive, or it's less, you're using less resources because you're polling less frequently, versus polling more frequently, which uses potentially more resources to like scan a table, but you're able to respond more with less latency when stuff changes, like when a user says, hey, I want to render this video, versus doing something like having this coordinating logic be invoked by the user saying, hey, I want to upload this video. Maybe the best thing to do is kind of a compromise where what this process will do is that it will, where's batch? So it'll submit a job. Well, let's do this. So before it does that, it needs to, let's see, Dynamo. And this is just going to be like a sketch, right? So we're going to do a query from Dynamo, and we don't need to worry about the details. This is just a tool that you can make it actually go, like you can build the workflow and it can do the things, but I'm just going to use it kind of to sketch things out, right? So it's pretty simple, right? So we query and we then want to submit the job if there is a job to submit, right? So we need a choice, right? So we need a choice to add if then logic, right? So if there is a thing, we submit the job. We can actually name this rule. I believe. Oh, right. With the comments. The comments is how we say that. So we say if video ready to render. So if there is a video ready to render, then we'll go and do it. Just ignore the errors. Again, this is just kind of sketching things out. Otherwise, the default is we want to just go to the end. It's not supported. So what we want to do is we want to pass. Let's move this down here, and I'll be able to say, okay, if there's nothing to process, then we're done. So in default rule, we can see default rule goes to done, like so. Must be a valid choice rule. Oh, right, because we didn't specify an actual condition. We would do that for the real thing. So again, just ignore that. And then I guess the question is, if there was one video to process, maybe there are more, right? So like in a normal queuing situation, you on the left hand would have your queue, on the left hand you would have a producer, something that's putting things into the queue. That might be the user, calling an API saying, hey, go render this video or upload this video. You have the queue in the middle that is kind of like holding in-flight messages, and on the right hand side you have your consumer or your workers that are taking messages off the queue, attempting to run them, but we only want one consumer at any given time. That's a constraint of what we're trying to do. And in this, in the normal case, you have the queue and you have the consumers, and they both exist and are running kind of concurrently, right? The queue can accept more messages, and the workers are continuously looking for messages or are pushed to the messages. There's some mechanism to get the message from the queue to the worker. What we want to do is something a little bit different, which is that we want to have this workflow is effectively the worker. The queue is the DynamoDB table of episodes is effectively the queue. But what we don't want to do is we don't want to continuously run the worker, aka the step function. We want to invoke it. We want to attempt to invoke it when the user submits the job to the queue. Submits the job to the queue being they mark an episode as being ready to be uploaded. The API that will be invoked when that happens somehow needs to be conditional. So essentially what we want to have is we want to have a mechanism where this step function should only be run, shouldn't be run concurrently. If there is an instance of this function running, don't run it again. If it's not running and an item is submitted to the queue, then run the step function. Is I think how this is going to work, and that covers cases where, what does that cover for us? So One thing that we're not going to be doing here is this is not going to be set up to attempt to... Actually, how is that going to work? How is that going to work? Because the table may have multiple episodes that are ready to be uploaded. We want to be able to continue to look for the next episode that's ready to be uploaded. But we also want to say, oh, there's an issue with something. Like a credential issue, let's say. Because again, I'm trying to, where it's not too onerous, to make this to support an idea of like multiple users with their own data and those sorts of things. How is this going to work? Like what we could do here in the query is we could get n number of results, right? And then we loop over each result and we attempt to upload it. And then we need to do things based on our quotas, and we can put some kind of weight in. And we can traverse through that. What's interesting here is that then this can be... Think about this. This could be good. We might end up with the queue anyway. I don't really like that. Like we need a way to say, so you can imagine, especially with multiple users at different times mark videos as being ready to be uploaded. And then the first time that event happens, it runs the step function because it's not already running. And that goes and looks for maybe videos that failed to upload before, and then the videos in question. And maybe by the time that event triggers the step function to run, maybe other users have flagged their video. So it's that first event that comes in and runs the workflow. And that handles those videos. What we're not doing with this workflow is having it accept a particular episode ID. Like it's going to be responsible for finding the ones that need to be uploaded and processing them. More talking requires more water, yes. So then we can handle cases where the batch job fails by... Do I want to do it this way? I think probably what I want to do, let's add some, again, I'm just kind of going to use this to sketch out what I want to have happen, right? So this is going to be more like, let's see. So we can have some error handling. So if there's an error, we're going to just fall back to this step. And then when we are here, otherwise, if there's not an error, go ahead and go to done. We need to add a loop construct here, but we can say if the batch job fails, then mark episode as not ready to upload. And then we'll add another pass state, which would represent something like notify user of failure. And we would actually have, I don't know, some SNS or some mechanism to actually do that, and not just the pass state there. Let's see, we don't need, because we don't need, hey, main scripter, hello, how's it going? Because in, so the thing I haven't added here is, like, we're gonna have multiple results from the query. Because we're gonna loop over those results, but we don't need to pass any information between one iteration and the other. I think we can get away with using a map here. And the concurrency would be just 1. So we would just, like, do one at a time. You're good. What about me? Doing pretty good. Had, you know, some successes earlier today with other things. Can you explain me this? Like, what are you doing? I'm new to web dev. So this is where to start. It's kind of esoteric, right? So this in particular is a what you're looking at right now is something inside of AWS. One of their services called Step Functions. Currently, I'm just using this as like a diagramming tool, but it's actually a way of like making a workflow, like a back-end workflow to like invoke a bunch of things. So I'm using this, not this. This is just a prototyping kind of activity, but I'm using this in AWS for. Let me go find an example. So the project that I'm working on is a front end and back end, all together, kind of called it's called Glowing Telegram, and the name means nothing. It's just a random name, but the idea is that I want to be able to take. It's a very like streamer focused thing because it's a front end React app that's like a CRUD interface that allows me to take the streams that I'm doing. So like if I look at, here's a stream from the 8th of December, and I can like review the stream. I'm using GPT-4 to analyze, I'm using OpenAI Whisper to generate transcripts of the stream. I'm using GPT-4 to then like generate highlights, like what happened in different time segments. So this is all stuff I've coded to like surface that information so that I can then turn around and turn that into episodes to upload to YouTube. So like here's the episode record for episode number 164 of the series, which this stream is part of, actually. So the front end is React and TypeScript and React Admin, which is like a CRUD. So like this kind of like there are different kinds of records, and you can create, retrieve, update, and delete them. So it's a CRUD library that I'm using for React. A bunch of other things. There's a whole list. I think there's a command. Let's see, is it stack? Is that current? Is my chatbot even working? No. One sec. It likes to turn off if I don't use it often. Let me go kick it really quick. Okay, it thinks it's active. What about this command? Nope. Streamlabs, what are you doing? active. Okay, so if I do stack, hey, there we go. That's mostly correct. I'm not using diesel anymore. But yeah, so on the back end is Rust. And I'm using a bunch of AWS services. I'm using Docker. And then I'm not using Post. So this is a little out of date at this point because I'm using like DynamoDB as a database. There's a whole video kind of like recapping what the Glowing Telegram project is. But in the short, it's a thing for me to take my streams and turn them into YouTube videos and use a bunch of AI and stuff. What I've been doing for the last couple of months is kind of it has been a big rewrite to make it so that it can all live on AWS. Hey, thanks for the follow.
Main_scripter just followed.
So I'm using Lambda, which is like a thing to run code. So like I'm using Rust and compiling up the binary, packaging in a Docker image and sending into AWS. And then my front end calls APIs that are served by Lambda. And then, so getting back to like this step function, what I have is like, you can imagine I'm streaming to Twitch right now. I also am recording locally so that I have the raw video files so that I can plug them into this tool. So I can upload them and then I can kick off through a button in the UI a workflow that happens asynchronously in the background. And this is that workflow that looks for those uploaded video files. And it does all these steps, right? So it's like, hey, list all the video objects for the stream. And then it updates the stream record to say, okay, this is how many video records were found. Because the way I record locally is like I have OBS set to record 20-minute segments at a time. That way, if something fails, it doesn't ruin the whole recording. And so the workflow, what it does is it loops over all of those video files in parallel, and it retrieves information from DynamoDB about them, and then it will kick off a batch job. So this is another Rust program that I've written to ingest video. So this is the thing that like does. It runs OpenAI Whisper to do speech to text. It does uses FFmpeg to do silence detection. It uses FFmpeg again to render out the video that I closed the tab, but the video that I had open where it had like a preview of the stream. So it does all that work, and the step function is what coordinates that. And so this diagram is the rendering of the actual workflow that does the work. So this is not like, oh, I made a diagram but there's some code elsewhere. This is actually derived from the quote unquote code. It's like JSON, right? So it looks like this. Like I somewhat understood what you're doing. Well, I'm glad. There is a lot. It's just like a bunch of layers. So a fun thing, if you have like several hundred hours to kill, I have all of the VODs of my streams of working on this project on the YouTube channel. But admittedly, it's a lot. But right now, what am I doing? I want to make a new workflow specifically to so I basically have at this point made it so that from the UI I can click through, I can select a section or have it auto select a section of a stream. It will create an episode record in my application, and it will render out like an MP4 file with like an intro animation, with like the little overlay things that show. So this was originally streamed on Twitch, with the outro animation, all that stuff. And it sticks that, in an S3 bucket. So, in the cloud, right? So the part that's missing right now is I no longer, like I said, this is a rewrite. Yeah, like an auto editor, exactly. So because I have used DaVinci Resolve, and like right now I have a 2-month backlog of streams that I don't have time to work on this project and stream and do like video editing stuff. That was the whole point of automating this, and it's gotten a lot better. But like I said, this is a rewrite. I've gotten just to the part where this is going to oh no, it sucks when the internet has problems. Yeah, so we just need to upload the file, but we have to do it in a way that YouTube/Google won't hate me. And that's the problem I'm trying to solve, is how can I upload this file without making YouTube mad? Right, so I don't know that I need this choice data, right? So if we get a list of items from the query results, then the list of items will be a list, and the map state will essentially loop over the items in the list. So for each item, we just want to submit the job, right? And then what we want to do is we'll move this and this inside, and we're going to change submit job so that when there's an error, it is going to be caught, and it's going to go to the mark episode is not ready to upload. And then what we need is we need a done state. No, like this. There we go. Let me do this. There we go. Okay. Oops. Okay, so when we submit the job, if there was an error, we mark the episode is not ready to upload and notify the user of the failure somehow. If it's successful, then we just say it's done. We don't need this choice state. And then the question is, what else do we need? What else do we need to do here? So we need... So what I'm thinking about now is, I think I mentioned earlier, right? So the batch submit job task here, it can tell us whether or not the job was successfully submitted and ran. We can't really get anything back about if there was a failure or if there was a success, like any kind of data about that. So we're probably going to need something that's going to communicate that information back to us. I think maybe what I will do is, let me move this stuff over here, and we're going to get rid of the catch here, this error handling. Because what we're going to do is we're going to do something else. So let's add a pass here that's going to represent get result of upload operation. So it won't actually be a pass. Like when we actually implement this for real in the in my infrastructure as code stuff in the repo, this will be probably like, I guess we'll query DynamoDB. I think I said before what I was going to do is I was going to create a new table. And the reason for that is what we can do is we can create a table where the records will have a time to live. So they'll automatically get like auto-deleted after a time because we don't need to keep the results of our attempt to upload forever. So we get the result and then we'll have a choice, right? So if then logic. So this is going to be something like if let's call it fatal error. So this would be something where the system there's no hope. Something that's not going to resolve itself, as opposed to throttled by API, right? And I guess for consistency, I'll say if throttled by API. There you go. Oh, don't move that. Okay, so, and then what we can do here is we can say, hey, we're going to mark the episode as not ready to upload if fatal error and notify the user of failure. If throttled by API, then what we need to do is we need to slow down some amount. And then if neither of those things happened, then it was successful. So then what we want to do is actually, we're going to say this is going to be mark episode as uploaded. We might as well just do that here. Then the batch job doesn't need to do that. We can do that for it. So one thing we could do here. Oh, that's a lot of zoom. Let's see. Can I? Oh, right there. Buttons right here, so we can zoom out a little bit. There we go. All right. So, oops. One thing we could do here is we could do something where we say, hey, you know, if we were throttled by API, we could wait and then we could try to resubmit the job. We could do that. It would make this more complex. We could just simply move on, right? To the next video. Oh yeah, I'm remembering something from the first implementation of this. That's going to be interesting because there is definitely, when you're uploading videos to YouTube, you can, like through the API, you can say, you can attach the video to a playlist. You can, when you do that, tell it where in the playlist the video should be added to. But I think the options are kind of limited. Let me go see if I can find the API docs to remember how that's supposed to work. YouTube API? YouTube data API. Yeah. Can we explore? Hey, welcome back. Yeah, in short, what I'm trying to do though is I'm trying to, I had previously implemented a thing to upload videos to YouTube, and I'm now re-implementing that now that I've gotten to that point in the rewrite. And part of the rewrite has been kind of making this so that it's more capable of supporting potentially like multiple users using the application and those sorts of things. I'm just trying to make things better. Well, let's see. When we, I think it's a playlist operation. Like when we these playlist items insert. Yeah, here it talks about quotas. So all of these API operations eat your quota that you get. Like there are quotas for these APIs, and you get like a certain amount of quota, and it uses it up. Like I'm also thinking of learning full stack and streaming. Well, it's a lot. Well, there's a lot, which is, I mean that in a really encouraging way. Like if you enjoy learning things, there are a lot of opportunities to learn in programming, and streaming too. Maybe not to the same extent as like full stack web dev. There's so many front end technologies, and there's so many different ways of doing things, but there's a lot of overlap too. Like at least with front end, yeah, there's a lot of like esoteric stuff. There's a lot of like, oh, this browser does this, and this browser does that, and you know, I feel like the complexity in front end, there's a lot of it's of our own making. Like, oh, there's this framework, and there's like so many different frameworks for doing front end dev in, and that's not untrue for back end too. But in that, if you're looking at it from like a web dev perspective, the front end is what's happening in the browser, and the back end is everything else, which is like the rest of the world. So there are definitely ways to choose getting into it, like how to constrain things to be like manageable. Like you don't have to know everything, because no one does. I don't. But you can definitely be like, okay, I'm going to pick up this one thing, and whatever it is you pick, it's probably going to be something you can make work. I think that there are definitely things that I'm probably a bit picky at this point, where it's like, I don't want to use that because it's going to make me do this way, and it rubs me the wrong way, right? But that's a me problem. Like so main script just says, like, I know some front end, like I know some Python, so I think learning Django. Yeah, Django, in terms of web frameworks, is one I really like, and Brainless is happy about that statement. I think the first time I used Django, I was coming from using PHP, and this is not like modern PHP, because this was when Django hit 1.0. So we're talking like 20 years ago or something. I used to give talks in open source conferences about Django. Neat. That's reading Brainless's message for context. Yeah. Okay, so with this playlist items thing, we want to insert. We provide a resource ID and a playlist ID, and we can set position. And what is the value of position? No idea. What is it supposed to be? Why doesn't it say? We probably have to look at the playlist item resource. And then there's a lot. Position is an unsigned integer. Of course it is. What does it mean? Order in which the item appears in the playlist. It uses a zero-based index. Okay, so you have to know which item order it is in. So that's fun. What if you do things out of order? And so you're like trying to upload 3 videos that are going onto a playlist, and you upload them out of order. Let's see, main script just says, where I like to get big projects to work on. I have a couple of thoughts about that. One, if you're getting into something, probably don't start with a big project. Like, think of a small project that will use a little bit of a thing, and then build up a thing from that, just to make it a little less daunting. The other thought I have there is, and maybe this is just a me thing, I feel like in terms of learning things, a problem I used to have was like, if the point of doing the project is to learn the technology, which I think was the problem, is that the mindset there was like, oh, I want to do this thing because it sounds cool, not I want to learn a thing, right? This is a young me problem. Is that then deciding, well, this is kind of hard, and like, oh, there's a bunch of stuff like that anyway. It's not a thing that's needed, whatever. And then getting, the first road bump, just being like, whatever, and giving up on it. And then missing out on the opportunity to actually, like, sure, even if you start small and you start adding things on, you're going to run into things that'll give you the opportunity to learn how to grow a project. And if you lose focus of the ideas to learn how to get there, then you end up like giving up on the thing, because it's like, okay, well, it's just, what's the point? But again, that's maybe a me thing. But when I think about like starting out and keeping, keeping, it's the cliche, but eyes on the prize, right? Keeping motivation to do those sorts of things. I think about things I wish I could have told my younger self. And then Brainless says, I also agree, small projects will be better to learn. Many small projects will yield more learning than a single large one. Also true. Now, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with position here. I am concerned. I guess maybe we can descope what I'm trying to solve here, right? So the previous version of this application did both upload the video and attach to a playlist. Maybe for right now, I will focus on just getting the video uploaded. I already know that there's going to be things that this API doesn't let you do. Are you Garfield? Brainless? Lasagna does sound good though. It's gonna be lunchtime for me soon. So maybe I just won't solve that. And then the issue of the order that things are uploaded won't be a problem. You're always sleepy, so maybe. Yeah, I feel like I've been kind of tired the last couple of weeks. I need to get back into a workout routine. I think that's it's a catch-22, right? Where I know that if I could pull the energy to get out a workout routine, yeah, that would be hard initially, but it would give me more energy in the long term. But then you have to have the energy to do that, and yeah. So maybe this is fine. I guess so. The idea is that what is the idea? So I'm in the UI. I submit a thing. Like, how I'm imagining this will work is that I will go maybe to the episodes list page, right? And I'll click this and I'll say upload to YouTube. There's already a button for it. But that doesn't work anymore. But like I said, this is we're wrapping up a rewrite, and there's a lot of cruft left over that has just been waiting to get reconnected to the real thing, the new thing. So you click the upload to YouTube button, and then what happens? Well, I would need to, I guess, mark the records as being ready to be uploaded with the timestamp. That's how I describe this as working. And then, so I would I would update the records in DynamoDB with maybe some kind of bulk update. And I could either, I guess I could just invoke the step function, right? So let's talk about what happens if things fails, because I think that scenario where I click the button, it updates the records and runs the step function works, right? It'll run this, it will query, it will find those 3 records that I've marked, it will submit the job for each one, it will do this stuff, and that works if everything succeeds, it goes through this middle path, and then the episodes are marked as uploaded as it goes, and then it's done, right? So the question is, what happens if things fail in these different scenarios, and how do we recover? And then main scripter says, like, I think firstly, I make some project it says implement backend. Yeah, sure. And then Brainless is talking about resisting the urge to work on work stuff on the weekends. I mean, if that's something that you enjoy and it's not going to take away, like, you know, burnout is a thing. That's one of the nice things. Like, I will say with the streaming that there is, and I know it's been kind of hit or miss on some of the stream days lately, but you know, for like nearly 2 years now, probably gonna join stream like some other time. It's 1 a.m. now. Well, good night. It's kind of late or early, but late for you. Thanks for stopping by. Yeah, like Brainless said, hope you have a good night. I feel like the streaming has been something that has encouraged me to commit to, I mean, sure, it's play, right? Video games, you know, committing to like getting through like Create Astral as a mod pack. That is probably the first mod pack that I've ever completed. And you know, having a schedule and having kind of like external visibility on things can be kind of can be a thing that is not necessarily motivating, maybe demotivating. Like I feel like there's advice that's like, oh, if you want to commit to doing something, you should tell someone so that you can have like the external, like, you don't want to let people down, right? But that can also backfire, and then yeah, it can be demotivating in the same way that like I don't know, just like anything else in life, you know, in school or at work, you know, having deadlines or having commitments and then procrastinating and then rushing and then that, you know, negative spiral sort of thing. So it's not, there's no silver bullet, but I do think that streaming mostly has encouraged me to like you know, see some success on one thing and then be able to say, okay, well, I definitely like work on some of the things like the modded Minecraft stuff and on this project outside of streams, but there's a minimum, right? At minimum, I am going to be working on this project for like 3 hours on Sunday, and then anything else is just like extra if I feel up to it. And then I guess I treat work the same way. It's like, you know, in my work period, which we don't need to go into details, Monday through Friday, this is what I'm doing. That's it. I could do more, but especially the position I'm in, it would be very visible, and I don't want to give an example that would encourage other people to burn themselves out. So I'm mindful of that. Because I definitely been there where like the work doesn't stop on the weekends because there's cool things that I could be doing, that I could be, moving the needle and I could work on this, or I could work on this little side thing that I could then demo, and we could really change the architecture of the stuff. And none of the stuff I'm saying, by the way, has anything to do with current work or the current company. But anyway, what was I doing? Right. So, what happens when things fail? So, I think in this fatal error case where it's like something is really wrong, it's not like a throttling issue. We're just going to say it's broken. And essentially remove it from the queue, because we're going to change the record so that it's not ready to upload anymore. And then somehow notify the user of the failure. Which I don't know how we're doing that yet. Something to do with WebSockets or something, I guess, is kind of the direction we were going with that. When we're throttled by the API, we need to wait some period of time, and we'll have to compute how long we're waiting. That might be minutes, hours. There are like daily quota refreshes, so that might be like a whole day. But this is the reason I want to use a step function, is because this whole thing can execute, and that execution can be over the span of days or weeks or even months. Like, I think the full runtime of a step function, it can run for up to a year. So we have a lot of flexibility here. More so, like, this is a better, like a more persistent queuing solution than using SQS. Are there cases here? So the one case is, I guess what we can do in the wait state is after we're done waiting, we can wait, and then the next state will be batch submit job, which I'm going to also rename so it's clear what's going on here. So if we go back to configuration, the name is going to be upload video. There we go. All right, and now our arrows kind of go all over the place. We can't really control the layout here of the diagram, because it's based on the underlying data that dictates the workflow. So if throttled, we can wait and then we can try again, right? And so what this is going to effectively do is when the step function runs, it's going to get a snapshot of the next set of videos to upload, and it's going to work through them. And then when it's done, we stop. I guess the easiest thing to do is, okay, so we've already identified one way in which the step function is run. So when I'm in the UI and I click the button, I won't bother going to the UI, but when you go to the UI, you select the episodes you want to upload, you click the button, it updates the records and runs the step function. That is going to run like a Lambda that's going to say, hey, is the step function already running? No. Run it. So that's one path. The other path is going to be probably like a schedule. It's going to be like maybe once an hour. Try to run the step function. If there's not already an execution already running, run it. And that will pick up any cases where, like if there's, as a scenario, let's talk about a scenario. So the user clicks the button, the user selects 100 episode records. Clicks the upload button. That marks all those records as being ready to be uploaded. This gets run. Probably what we're going to have is we're going to have this query. It's going to have a limit to how many records it's going to find at a time. We're either going to set it, it's going to have a default from the query API for Dynamo. And so, one, that's going to take a long time, potentially days. I guess hourly is probably overkill, maybe like a daily run of the process. Because, okay, the user clicks the button and they want to upload 100 videos. Well, we're going to work through the first 10, and that's going to take 3 days. The user is not going to want to or know to do anything for those other videos, the other 80, right? So if we have a process that runs daily, eventually this execution will stop, and then that daily run will run and see, oh, the step function is not running, let me run it. And daily is, I mean, it could be hourly for that matter. It doesn't really matter, because what's going to happen is it's going to, if there was nothing to do, this would return 0 results. The map would do nothing and it would end. And this would cost like less than a penny. Like, this is super cheap to run as a serverless thing. Okay. I think though what I'm gonna do is we're gonna hang around until after the ad, and we're gonna kick off a raid. And it's really weird that Frosty Tools reported on the follow again. Pretty sure that happened before, but whatever. We're gonna stick around through the ad, and then we're gonna kick off a raid because I need to go get some lunch. And I was not keeping an eye on the ad timer. So yeah, so I think this is what we're gonna do though. So this has been an hour of me kind of like figuring things out, and then also some chatting with chat, which is nice.